Exhibit E, the statement of William Wyatt.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me here to present my views about the incident. I gathered last week and presented my testimony, which was, they created an affidavit and printed it, and this is what I have in front of me now. This is my printed affidavit. And so I'm going to refer to it because I want it to be, my presentation here today to be factually accurate. So here I go. I, William Wyatt of Salem, a coaster, testify and say that last Monday evening, being the 5th day of March current, I was in Boston, down at Treats Wharf, where my vessel was lying, and hearing the bells ring, supposed there was a fire in the town. Of course, whereupon, because of that alarm, I hastened up to the townhouse, and on the south side of it, where I saw an officer of the Army leading out the guardhouse. There were 7 or 8 soldiers of them with the Army, and they were leaving. They were going in a bit of a haste to the custom house on the north side of King Street, where I followed them. And now, when the officer had got there with the men, he bid them to face about. So I stood just below them on the left wing, and the said officer ordered his men to load, which they did. You know, they did with utmost dispatch. These are good soldiers, the king's very best. Then they remained about 6 minutes with their firelocks rested and their bayonets fixed, but not standing actually in exact order. So I observed a considerable number of young lads, and here and there in a group, a man amongst them, and they were about in the middle of the street, and they were facing the soldiers, but not within 10 or 12 feet distance from them. Now I observed some of them. They had sticks and in their hands, and they were laughing and shouting and huzzing and crying fire, but but I could not observe that any of them threw anything at the soldiers. You know, they weren't doing anything like that. And they certainly didn't threaten them. But anyway, this officer who brought him out, he retired from before the soldiers, and he stepped behind them. And he was on the right wing, and then he bid the soldiers that they fire. Well, they did not fire. And now he presently bid them again. He goes, fire! And again, they didn't fire. So he got very upset, and he slammed down his foot, and he says, and I say, fire, be damned with what happens, the consequence. So after a very short pause, they fired. The man on the left wing flashed his gun. The man on the left wing. Let me back up here because I'm losing my place, but I want to make sure I get this exact sequence here because this is important. He said, forget about the consequence. It'll be what it is. So then the second man on the left, he fired off his gun. Then after a very short pause, they fired in sequence all the way down the line. And the man on the end, his gun didn't flash, so he had to reload. And then after he was reloading, the crowd was running down the street, and he turned and he shot his gun into the crowd as they fled. Anyway, 3 or 4 people fell down. They saw that. But this officer, at this point, after he fired, this man fired and shot a man running down the street, he confounded his soldiers by telling them to fire no more. Fire no more. So anyway, they looked confused and confounded, so they stopped. Anyway, I went up behind them to the right wing where one of the people was lying there to see whether he was dead. And there were 4 or 5 people around him, and he was dead. So anyway, I remember the officer going down with the soldiers towards the custom house. And a gentleman there on the side, he spoke to him and he said, "Captain Preston, for God's sakes, keep your men in order and mind you what they are about." And that's the end of my statement. I say nothing further beyond that.